4-year-old Lucas, rescued from a house fire by a brave fireman, kept repeating 2 words that unsettled everyone around him: "Bad Daddy." As the fire was brought under control, the attention quickly shifted from the flames to Lucas's troubling words. An officer, feeling a growing sense of unease, decided to investigate further inside the house. The moment the officer stepped into the dimly lit hallway, he knew something was terribly amiss and immediately called for backup. Officer James was standing in the burned-down hallway of little Lucas's house. As he looked around, an eerie feeling washed over him. As he stepped through the burned debris, he began to understand there could be more at play here. "I'm going to need immediate backup," he said through his radio. We actually really need you back here," his colleague carefully answered through the radio. Officer James stopped in his tracks. "What do you mean?" he asked confusedly. When his colleague began to speak again, Officer James could hear the frantic screams of little Lucas on the other end of the line. Officer James's stomach dropped. What was going on there? He had to make a choice: stay and investigate the awful feeling he got from this house, or go back and see what was going on with little Lucas. Officer James sighed as he stepped into a room that looked like it could have been Lucas's room before it burned down. As he stood in the room, he could hear Lucas screaming bloody murder outside. "Don't go in there," he yelled. He radioed his colleague again, saying he really needed some backup inside the house. His voice was urgent, probably the reason why his colleague decided to send in 2 more officers. When they arrived at Officer James's side, he explained the situation to them. They had to find out why little Lucas screamed "Bad Daddy" and what had caused the house to go up in flames, and more importantly, where Lucas's father was. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. You see, little Lucas was the only person the firemen had been able to save from the burning building, and when they did the walkthrough after the fire was out, there was no sign of anyone else left behind. The officers outside were already trying to reach little Lucas's parents by phone, but until now, only the mother had answered. She had been very upset by the news and told the officers she would rush home immediately. "James, you have to see this," one of his colleagues yelled from the living room. Officer James hastily made his way there, and when he saw what his colleague held in his hands, his stomach dropped. Officer Tom quickly did as James ordered and rushed outside. Officer James looked out of the window and saw Lucas's reaction to what Officer Tom had brought outside. He instantly stopped screaming and almost looked a little frightened. The mother arrived, Officer James's colleague said over the radio. "All right, I'm coming out," Officer James answered. When Officer James stepped outside, he instantly knew who the mother was. "Oh, Lucas, my baby," the mother frantically cried as she hugged her son. Lucas melted into her arms, but not for long. He quickly shot up and repeated the words he had said when he was rescued from the burning house. "Bad Daddy," he said as he looked his mother in the eyes. But Officer James already knew that Lucas's father wasn't at work that day, as they had already tried to reach him there. When he told Lucas's mother this, he could see the color draining from her face. "But he left for work early this morning," she said, full of disbelief. "I'm afraid he had other plans," Officer James responded. Despite Officer James's gentle but persistent questions, she remained unwavering. "My husband is innocent. I know him better than anyone. He couldn't do this." Her voice was steady now, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around her before. Knowing Lucas's mother wouldn't be of any help, Officer James, with determination etched on his face, directed the forensic team. "We need to know everything," he instructed firmly. How the fire started, why it spread so quickly. Everything. The days following were fraught with a tense waiting game. With determination, Officer James mobilized his team for a widespread search. "We need to find Lucas's father fast," he instructed, mapping out potential areas on a large city map. Patrol cars were dispatched, alerts were sent out, and the local community was notified. Interviews with relatives and close friends of Lucas's father brought little clarity. "He's just a regular guy," they'd say, or "We haven't seen him in weeks." Officer James noted the confusion and worry on their faces. Officer James's restlessness escalated with the passing days. The absence of concrete evidence and the father's continued disappearance weighed heavily on him. With each passing day, the tension in the station grew. Officer James and his team worked tirelessly, combing through evidence, revisiting the scene, and re-interviewing witnesses. In a room adorned with colorful drawings and soft toys, Officer James knelt to be at eye level with Lucas. His voice was soft, his questions simple and open-ended. "Can you tell me about that day, Lucas?" he asked gently. Lucas, clutching a small stuffed bear, glanced up with wide, uncertain eyes, the innocence in his gaze a stark contrast to the gravity of the situation. Lucas fidgeted, his responses interspersed with long pauses as if searching for the right words within his young mind. Each answer, though brief, was a vital clue, a small window into the events of that fateful day. Officer James listened intently, aware that these cryptic utterances were pieces of a larger, more complex puzzle, hidden in the innocent language of a child. Officer James pondered over Lucas's words, attempting to read between the lines. Shadows, hiding. Loud noises, he repeated quietly to himself. Observing the mother's reactions, Officer James found himself questioning the undercurrents of her responses. Was her distress solely born of concern for her son, or was there an element of fear, perhaps of a truth she wasn't ready to face? The long-awaited forensic report finally arrived, bringing with it a significant breakthrough. The analysis confirmed that the fire was intentional. Among the forensic findings, one detail stood out starkly: fingerprints on the remnants of the safe, unmistakably identified as belonging to Lucas's father. This discovery was a critical piece of the puzzle, irrefutably linking him to the scene before the fire. The implications were profound and troubling, painting a picture of premeditation that was hard to ignore. The evidence of arson, combined with the discovery of the safe, pointed towards a chilling conclusion: the fire had been planned. It was a scenario fraught with peril and dark intentions. Officer James pondered the implications, the pieces of the puzzle forming a sinister image. The direct link to Lucas's father shifted the focus of the investigation dramatically. His fingerprints on the safe were silent but damning testimonies of his presence and involvement. The search expanded beyond city limits, reaching national and international law enforcement agencies. Interpol was alerted, and airports were put on high watch. The case had grown from a local tragedy to a manhunt with global ramifications, the stakes higher than ever. Despite the mounting evidence, Lucas's mother clung to her belief in her husband's innocence. He wouldn't do this, she repeated to anyone who would listen. Her denial was a fortress she refused to abandon, even as the walls of evidence closed in around her. Officer James observed her reactions, torn between empathy and the harsh reality of the facts before them. The terminal was a sea of faces, a mix of travelers oblivious to the drama unfolding among them. Officer James's focus was unyielding, his team communicating through subtle signals. As boarding announcements echoed, the anticipation built to a crescendo. Every passenger passing by ratcheted the tension higher, the team poised for action, waiting for the moment of truth. Just as a final boarding call was made, Lucas's father appeared, his figure instantly recognizable to the trained eyes of the officers. As he approached the gate, the team converged with swift precision. Officer James watched as his father was detained, the surprise and realization dawning on his face. The arrest was smooth, a culmination of relentless pursuit and strategy. In the moment of his arrest, a tumult of emotions crossed Lucas's father's face. In his surrender, there was an unspoken acknowledgement, a story yet to be told. Further investigation led to a rented storage unit, registered under one of the false identities. Inside, officers found boxes of new personal belongings and furniture, still wrapped and unopened. This secret cache suggested meticulous preparation, a parallel life set up in anticipation of a swift departure. The items in the storage unit, alongside the false documents, pointed unmistakably to plans for a new life elsewhere. Receipts for large cash withdrawals and brochures for overseas properties were among the papers found. These were not the impulsive acts of a desperate man, but the calculated steps of someone intending to vanish completely and start afresh, leaving his old life in ashes. With each discovery, the extent of the father's duplicity came into sharper focus. Bank statements, emails, and notes found in his office revealed a web of lies and financial troubles. The depth of his deceit was staggering, a betrayal that went far beyond the fire. His voice, once firm, now faltered as he confessed to setting the fire. "I wanted to disappear. Start over," he whispered, his words laced with regret. The confession hung heavy in the air, a stark admission of guilt. As he spoke, a tale of debts, lies, and deceit unfolded. His life, it appeared, had been a precarious balancing act, one that had finally toppled over. The financial burdens he carried were immense, leading him down a path of deception that spiraled out of control. His confession laid bare the depth of his despair and the lengths to which he had gone to escape it. In a moment of raw honesty, Lucas's father admitted he had not known Lucas was in the house. "I thought he was at school," he said, his voice breaking with the realization of his grave oversight. Lucas's father, now a forlorn figure, was formally charged and brought to trial. The courtroom was a stark arena where his fate would be decided. As he stood before the judge, the weight of his actions was palpable. The trial proceeded with an urgency driven by the overwhelming evidence. Lucas's father's confession, corroborated by the forensic analysis and the discoveries of his dual life, left little room for doubt. The gavel fell, and Lucas's father received a significant prison sentence. The verdict resonated through the courtroom, a definitive end to months of uncertainty and turmoil. For Officer James, it was a moment of solemn satisfaction, the conclusion of a case that had tested his resolve and determination. For Lucas and his mother, it was a painful yet necessary step towards closure. In the aftermath of the trial, Lucas and his mother embarked on a long journey of healing. Their world, once shattered by tragedy and betrayal, slowly began to mend. Support from the community and counseling helped them navigate their grief and loss. The story of Lucas and his mother concluded with a forward gaze toward a future filled with hope. Their journey through darkness and back into the light was a poignant reminder of the power of resilience and healing.